All right, can you introduce yourself and just tell us who you are, where you're from?
Of course, yeah. You can call me Wulfric, and I am currently living in Switzerland. I grew up here, and yeah, I'm 27.
How's the
Yeah.
Harry Potter scene in Switzerland?
Um, I don't know. Like, it is quite widespread.
Yeah.
Like most of the people I talk to either have seen the movies or have read the books and or sometimes also big fans. But I haven't like heard of many like fan gatherings. I also haven't checked to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's normal,
I think
normal
Nurmengard
around.
isn't. Well, Grindelwald is in Switzerland. I think Nurmengard is in Switzerland as well.
Uh,
Or where is
isn't
Nurmengard? Maybe I'm.
Nurmengard? I think is in the North Sea, no?
Oh, Nurmengard
Or
is.
is that in Azkaban?
I think
Actually, I don't
Azkaban is
remember.
in the North Sea. Nurmengard is in Austria.
Okay.
I knew it was. I knew it was up in the
Yeah,
mountains somewhere.
yeah. I mean, it's very close by, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, some of
yeah,
that stuff is cool. Like there's like little
yeah,
Harry Potter history in every place
for
that you go.
sure. Yeah,
Can
yeah.
you tell me
I mean,
when you first started reading?
I started actually quite late. So I remember it was in 2007, I think, when the either it was right before Deathly Hallows was coming out
Mm-hmm.
or right after. And I remember like being in class and like all my friends were starting taking out the Harry Potter books and reading them in the breaks.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? Like we usually, I mean, for us, this was very unusual because we usually just go out and play soccer,
Yeah.
either during the breaks or like in our free time. So I was a bit intrigued, and then I think that was when I was in fifth grade. Um, so I was 11, I
Mm-hmm.
think. A perfect time to read. But the first book that I actually read was Goblet of Fire, which
Wow.
is quite a strange start. And the reason for that is like so our teacher had his own kind of library in the back of the class at the wall, and you could just like if you like the book that you see back there, you can go to him and say, hey, I want to borrow this. Can I borrow this and then read it? And he had also the Harry Potter books,
Mm-hmm.
but all of them except for Goblet of Fire were already lent out, so I just could read that one. And I was surprised that I stuck with it because, especially the first chapter. I mean, it's weird to read about like this
Yeah.
Frank Bryce and
Yeah.
all of these new terms, and you just go with it. And it was also in German, actually.
That's crazy.
And
So you're reading it
yeah,
in German. Is German your first language?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. That's
yeah,
crazy. You were reading it in German and you were reading the fourth book from where it started. I feel like the fourth book
yeah.
is the one where if you start the fourth book, like there's no introduction really. It just jumps into the story.
Yeah, I think that I was really lucky because the fourth book, I think, is the last book that has at least still some like
Yeah.
throwback from the previous, like introducing
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, just recaps. Um, but it's very brief compared to the first, that's the second and the third, of
Yep.
course.
Yeah, the
Um,
second one, like
yeah,
the first chapter, is like giving you the full
yeah,
recap of what happened the year
yeah,
before. And you're as like a
exactly.
reader,
Yeah,
you're like, come on, I don't need this. But
yeah,
I guess if you started the
exactly.
fourth book or the second book, you kind of do need that.
It was really helpful. Yeah, yeah,
That's actually pretty crazy. How many
yeah.
times have you
So,
read the series?
um, I think back then, I mean, immediately after reading the fourth book, I went back to the first and like
Mm,
just I wasn't really a big reader,
yeah.
and so it was really weird for me to just like be glued to these books and like read them like back to back to back within a very short time. And I think since then I've read them every year or two at least once. And
Yeah.
then back in during when I started my bachelor's, I think I first time read them also in English.
Hmm.
And since then, probably was more like a yearly thing. And this year has been the craziest because of the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I was listening to you guys and like thinking about what all like where you all are, and I then went back to like the different audiobooks to listen to all of those because I never
Hmm.
really listened to them except for John Roth, which I talk
Yeah.
way too much about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's gonna be the next time I listen to it. I'm gonna just do the full John Voth one because some of the
yeah,
stuff that
I
he
mean,
does is unbelievable.
yeah, especially also because he also reacts to them, right? So
Yep.
it's
Yep.
very entertaining seeing the first time read through
Yep.
journey. Of course, I mean it also has some drawbacks, but in general, I'm a really big fan of his reading. And so yeah, also because of the podcast, I was also inspired to start like a kind of mini book club myself with my friends.
Nice. I love that.
Um, yeah, so now we just yesterday actually finished discussing the second book. Um, and yeah, it's been quite fun. So I've been like, usually I'm reading them from like first book to last book, but now I'm like simultaneously in like three or four different books.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
It's strange, but it's
Yeah,
like kind of fun. It's like
yeah,
when I find myself doing it, it's like I have to switch gears between different podcasts and between my own personal
yeah,
reading versus the podcast reading. And it's like I'm almost studying the text now, which is kind of
yeah.
really fun. It's like I'm studying it from this analytical perspective where I have to hop around from book to book and get myself in different
Yeah.
mindsets for each one.
Yeah, yeah, especially like with this friend group that I have that we're now reading every like three, four chapters together.
Mm-hmm.
I I've never had so many like random thoughts. Like I shared the
Yeah,
notes of
you
the first,
yeah.
yeah,
You
that
have to
one,
keep
yeah,
sharing the thoughts because I was so entranced by your thoughts on the first
it,
book, and I'm like, that's one of the things that I love so much about this whole idea of reading through it too, is like treating it like a book club, because people
yeah,
find so many fun details in there, and I feel like there's still
mhm.
so much more to find.
Yeah, and I feel like every time I read through them, I just am either in a different headspace or like just in tune or pay attention to different things. So I
Yeah.
always keep discovering like new aspects, new theories. Like the most fun that I had with the first book that we did the book club on is the bit about the different um, mindsets, I think,
Mm,
because like state of minds, sorry,
mm,
there's different state of minds that you can list or read the listing on Wikipedia. One
yeah.
of them is intent, and the intent part was intriguing to me because it's how the mirror of Erised works
Yep.
when you or desire is one and intent is one,
Mm-hmm.
and like I just try to match all of those different state of minds with some sort of way of magic we've seen in the books,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was really fun. Yeah,
Yeah. Those exercises are so much fun. It's like
yeah,
how in depth this world is. And like some of
yeah,
these things that, as like some people talk about, like when I was in high school and I was reading books, and anytime they were like, the author used it here because he was like, thinking about this book way ahead. And I was like, no, he just wrote that just to write it. But sometimes when I
yeah,
read JK, I'm like, I feel like everything was so purposeful in what
yeah,
she wrote. And like everything just had a meaning for something later on in the
yeah,
series. And so
yeah.
it's just so good. Even, I mean,
It's
everyone makes note of this. I just saw a video about this, but when Snape is quizzing Harry his first potions lesson about all the
mhm.
stuff, there's like hidden meaning behind everything that he says in
Yeah,
that. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, it's just so much fun. I mean, I do believe like she had most of it figured out, but sometimes I do also feel like some things like
yeah.
are the ideas are introduced, but like it's more fleshed out in the next book when it
Yeah.
actually becomes the main focus,
Yep.
which is fine. I mean, you don't have to have everything. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's unreasonable, but
Yeah.
it's just so much fun.
Yeah. The put
Yeah,
outer, the deluminator is a good example of
yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Are any of your friends reading it for the first time?
No, so one person is he read it when he was, I think, also like around like 10, 14, 16, somewhere
Mm-hmm.
then. And he also read them in German and doesn't remember much.
Okay.
Also from the movies, he doesn't remember much. I mean, he knows like the most important story beats,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we now because of that, we just really try to not spoil the things he doesn't know yet. Because
Mm-hmm.
once I just asked him like what he remembers, and it's quite fun. It's uh, hard on the one hand to try to remember like what he all remembers,
Yeah.
because if it would be just a blind read through, I can imagine like what things to keep away. But this way, it's also quite a fun exercise for me to like piece things together, which things I can say and which can't.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah,
That is a fun exercise, because for me it's
yeah,
easy because the people that I talk to haven't read the series at all. So like I know
yeah,
what to keep away and what not.
yeah,
But for someone
yeah,
like, who remembers some things and doesn't, it'd be hard to
yeah,
keep track of.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's why I love like book clubs like that where you can kind of just sit back and talk about a book that you love is like the best thing
Yeah,
ever. I love it so
yeah,
much.
yeah. And you would be surprised, like initially when we first sat down, we were like, I mean, what is there to discuss? Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we read four chapters. Yeah, maybe we can like fill out like 20, 30 minutes. But in the end, we end up talking like 2, 3 hours,
Yep.
and like the time just flies. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Do you record them at all?
I do.
Yes.
But it's more like for private use because I mean
Yeah, yeah.
it's in Swiss German, so it's not even
Okay.
the German speaking people. Maybe if they try hard can understand us, but we have like a dialect that is also harder for them to
Okay.
understand. Yeah, so it wouldn't be of use to really publish it.
That's all right. That's so cool though. I love that.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
recording it for personal use and like for
yeah,
entertainment,
for
it's so fun.
memories.
Yeah,
Yeah,
seriously.
yeah,
That's the best.
yeah.
Now, what house are you in?
I mean, it's kind of obvious with I don't know if
Yep.
you can see Ravenclaw. Yeah. No, I've been always put in Ravenclaw. Sometimes I got maybe like a Gryffindor,
Okay.
but most of the time I usually get Ravenclaw, which I think is very fitting. It's a bit sad because in the books we don't really they're
Yeah.
not a big part of the books,
Yep.
and like I mean there are very few good examples. I mean Flitwick is one, I guess, and
Yeah.
Luna and Cho, I guess. But other than that, I mean, there's Michael Corner, which I mean,
Yeah.
don't know much about
Yeah,
him.
I know. Yeah. There's a few random ones that we know. It's the same thing. Like
Yeah,
Hufflepuff has a few good ones.
yeah,
But like, yeah, Ravenclaw, there's not a ton that you just know off the top of your head, you know? There's
yeah,
not like, yeah, you can't really think
yeah,
of a ton.
yeah.
Who else in like Hogwarts past had been in Ravenclaw?
If I remember correctly, I'm not sure, but I think Gilderoy Lockhart was also
I
one,
think so.
which is
I think you're right.
not really something I want to
Yeah.
associate myself
Yeah.
with.
That's
But
not something to be proud of either.
yeah, yeah. Other than
Yeah.
that, I don't remember many.
I'm going to look it up. Ravenclaw um, people. Yeah, you have the Luna and Show ones. Yep, the Gilderoy Lockhart. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a few decent ones. Yeah, I feel like Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff were kind of the neglected houses, but I
yeah,
feel like after the books, they're the coolest houses. Like if you're in Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff, to me, I'm like Slytherin got all the book time. Same thing, Gryffindor got all the book time. But like more
yeah.
people I know now want to be in Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like when I was reading the books first time and like the first, I don't know, maybe 10 times, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
I was always like unhappy with Ravenclaw because the
Yeah,
Gryffindor were always the cool ones.
yeah,
But now, like since I don't know, like 5, 10 years, I've been quite happy with Ravenclaw.
yeah,
Like, it's nice.
yeah. Same thing for me. For a while, I was like, I would love to be in Gryffindor. They're like, they get all the
Yeah,
page time, and then the
yeah.
longer I'm in Hufflepuff, the more I'm pretty proud of Hufflepuff.
You're playing Hogwarts Legacy right now, right?
Yeah.
Have you visited all the common rooms?
No, not yet.
It's a bit annoying because you can't just go into the ones that you are not sorted into.
Yeah. How do
But
you actually
after
do
I
that?
played, I mean, there was an exploit where you can just go through the walls and then it
Mm.
works, but I didn't do that. I just, when I first finished the playthrough, I then went back and started the game as the other houses to
Nice.
just see
Yeah.
the common rooms, just to see like which I find the most comfy. And
Which
I
one?
mean, it's hard. Like Ravenclaw is beautiful, especially because of the view,
Yeah.
but it's a bit, I don't know, like cold and sterile. I don't know, like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it just rubs off a bit wrong. Hufflepuff is beautiful just because of the like
The
warm yellowish
plants.
tones and the plants. But the problem I have with Hufflepuff is it doesn't really have windows that
Yeah,
you
I
can
know.
look
Yeah.
out of.
It's like the dungeon. We're
That's a
like,
bit sad.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But we're by the kitchens,
Gryffindor,
so.
yeah, that's true. That's a big plus. And Gryffindor, I think, is just very cozy, which is really nice. And Slytherin, I feel bad for Slytherin people.
Yeah. It's cold.
It's so done, yeah, dingy, cold, like not really inviting.
Is the Gryffindor common room in Legacy the same as the movies? Is it somewhat
Quite
similar?
similar, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, quite similar.
Nice.
It's
I
quite
gotta go
cool.
check that out. I'm just gonna go like
Yeah,
watch a video on the common rooms and
yeah,
Legacy after this.
yeah.
Now can you do the impossible task of telling me your ranking of the books?
Um, yeah. So for me, it's like the order is quite clear up until the last or the first three,
Okay.
and they're like like I mean the first three in the ranking, not the first three books, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I
So like
place first, second, third.
yeah, so 7, 8,
Um,
or 7, 6, 7, 5. are the easy ones for you to
exactly.
rank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, those are the hard ones.
Oh, really?
Those I cannot say like. Okay, no, this is a bit stupid. So, first place, second place, third place, I cannot place because Deathly Hallows, Phoenix, and Half the Plains are just very hard for me to compare.
Yeah.
And the rest is easy. The
Okay.
rest I find, yeah.
So
So
start with
seventh place
yeah, start with seventh.
would be Chamber.
Yep. Yeah.
It's yeah,
And it's
it's
funny
just
too. Go ahead.
yeah for me. What I realized this read through when I did the book club thing is it's just quite shallow, very
Mm.
plot driven. Not really. It doesn't expand the world that much. I mean, the coolest
Yeah.
thing is getting to know about the founders.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's and I mean there are some cool moments like the Dumbledore telling Harry that it is the choices that matter and not
Yeah.
who you are. Despite your similarities with Voldemort, you chose to be in Gryffindor. That's a really really powerful moment.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, yeah, it's just doesn't do it for me.
There's some stuff for like Endgame that's really important, like reading because I'm
Yeah,
reading Horcruxes with the first crew, and then right now I'm reading Chamber with Abby, and there's like
yeah,
some stuff that I'm like, okay, I could see the importance of this book and why she had to establish it, but I'm like, she could have added a few more like
yeah,
things to the world just to build the world out a little bit more in that book, you know?
yeah. I mean, there was I don't know where I read it. Maybe it was some also shared in the Reddit. It was a bit there was the idea that she didn't know if the story about the second one or the sixth one she would put in those places.
Mm.
So it could have been that the story of the sixth one happens in the second one
Wow.
as a second book, and vice versa. And I would love to read the book that would be the second story, but with the length of like the sixth book.
Oh my gosh, that would be fascinating.
Yeah,
I've
because
always
I
said
can
too,
just imagine
one of
it.
my favorite, I would die for unedited copies of this,
Yeah,
where like her
yeah,
editors didn't like chop off certain chapters or stuff like that, because the
yeah,
first and second one are the smallest, and a lot of people
yeah,
say that when she wrote those and gave those to the editors, some people say that they're the best as far as like the actual writing is concerned, um, which I don't necessarily agree that much. I don't think
no,
that's the truth, but some people, like I had a few writing professors and they said,
mm,
um, as far as the technical writing is concerned, they said that the first two books are the best, and then the last five are just like the better story. So
mm,
I'm like, maybe her editors just were able to like have more of a hand in the first two books, and then when she got huge and acclaimed, she was like, I don't need to listen to editors anymore. That's like the theory. I don't necessarily think that's even true, but just to get
yeah,
like a larger, expanded version of each book would be a dream come true for me.
yeah. I mean, I I can't really judge that because like for me, it's really hard to judge a children's book like how well it is written.
Yeah,
Which the first two are obviously like children's for children
yeah,
as a target audience. Um, and like when I compare the writing, and especially the seventh one, which when it just comes to the pure like thought processes, the narration, and everything like that, the seventh one is like I think the strongest.
yeah.
It's like so beautiful how she writes about the grief, the
Oh my
inner
gosh.
like despair of Harry, and like
Yep.
all of those things. Like, so yeah, I don't understand like how the seventh isn't the best one, but yeah,
People, it's
yeah,
the seventh one gets such weird hate for certain groups, and I don't
yeah,
understand it at all. Like the more I'm into this book right now at the season one crew, the more I think this is like an absolute masterpiece of
yeah,
writing. Like how
yeah,
she sets her beats, how she sets the tone throughout the writing, like how there's certain moments, like cause I've even been telling Jen and Danny this, because like this read, I'm like, there are certain action-packed chapters, and then there's information-driven chapters, but how she weaves those together, and like how
yeah,
like the wedding chapter to me that's like a information chapter, but the
yeah,
end of that chapter, how action packed the end of that chapter is, where the guy comes in and goes, the ministry has fallen, like
yeah,
they are coming,
yeah,
and then they have to all freak out and get out. That's such an action packed chapter as well.
yeah. And I think a third theme in that, like besides the action and the information, is also like very deep, like character studies
Oh my
of
gosh, yeah.
I mean, like Harry's and I mean the whole tent
Yep.
scenes,
Yep.
those are beautiful in my opinion, and also like the like coming in terms like coming to grips with like what he learns about Dumbledore,
Oh yeah.
and like the big theme there it's just like the character also like the bottle episode kind of scene with them being at Grimal Place and then
Mm-hmm.
Lupin comes in and it's just them four in the kitchen
Yep.
and they're just talking, but it's such a heavy hitter in terms of emotion because Harry
Yeah.
is just so mad at Lupin.
Yep. I know.
Yeah, I mean, so
I
many good things.
I
Yeah,
know. People are so
yeah,
excited to get to that chapter. I'm like dreading it because that's one of my. We were talking
mm,
about that in the in our Discord before. Like that chapter hurts for me to read.
yeah,
It's like a necessary one, and yeah, I
yeah,
think you're nailing it. Like the character drivenness of that this book
yeah,
is phenomenal because you have been established. Like these characters have been established for 6 books, and for Harry
yeah,
to truly grow up as a leader is remarkable, and for you to see the decisions that he's making and how he butts heads with other people because they're not really doing what they should do. Same thing,
yeah.
Ron's arc in that this book is my
Oh yeah,
favorite. It is so
yeah,
fascinating why he was given the Deluminator. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
it's so good.
yeah. There, I was also like very, very happy with the theory about the Patronus and the Deluminator.
Yeah, that was so fascinating. I
That's
love that.
yeah,
It's become new
yeah,
headcanon for me.
yeah. I love like exploring that side as well. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you got to
So
explain
yeah,
that.
that was the,
Actually, take a second and explain that if you can.
okay. So let me remember. So the way that the comeback of Ron to the group is written is like Ron hears a voice, which is Hermione's voice, saying his name,
Mm-hmm.
and then he clicks it, and that's like ball of light at the end after
Mm-hmm.
going like out and going outside of the bounds for where he can apparate, goes inside him, fills him with kind of a warmth, and then he knows where to apparate. And the whole like idea behind the Patronus
Mm-hmm.
is that you, on the one hand, of course, have like very positive feelings and think about a happy moment, but also that the Patronus can speak,
Mm-hmm.
have a voice, and that aspect, together with it kind of knowing, like the way the Order of Phoenix has been using it, kind of knowing where to go once you want to send out a message.
Yep.
Um, those two like aspects kind of feel it for me like they are the mechanism behind the Deluminator,
Mm.
which uses light, which is obviously seen as something a positive force, shedding light in the darkness,
Yep.
and yeah, like all of those. I had it, I think, a bit better written in the Reddit,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
think those were the
I
main
know.
beats.
I'm gonna link it in this video too because that was
Yeah,
I remember reading that theory being like that is it. This is completely headcanon for me now. And that's
yeah,
another
that's
thing I love
beautiful.
about
Yeah,
this community is like we're coming up with crazy theories that
yeah,
are so fascinating. Like
yeah.
even the other day we were watching the Half Blood Prince movie and it always bothered me why Snape left his book there. To me, like I'm like, if
Mm,
that there's his research in that, did he plant the book for Harry to find? And while we were watching it, someone's like, here's my new headcanon. I just came up with this. They said Snape actually gave it to Draco. And
mm,
Draco, because he didn't want Snape's help at all, and like he gave it to him because he's under the Unbreakable vow. Because Draco didn't want that book at all and didn't want anything to do with Snape, as the first day he walks into this room, he drops it into this little cupboard and picks up a new book, not thinking anything
mm.
really of it. And then Harry and Ron go and they get this book. I'm like, the ramifications of that are so crazy. It's so fun to like
That's
theorize
amazing.
about it. So that's like even new headcanon for me. But the Deluminator, I remember you writing about that and I was like, that is it. That's like,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
Oh, I need to think about that theory. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's a good
Yeah.
one.
Holy shit. Yeah.
So
Oh,
so
my
so far
gears.
we got the 7th book. So what's your
Yes.
sixth favorite? Sixth least favorite?
um, it's it's close between Philosophers and Azkaban,
Okay.
but I have to put Philosophers first.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just hard because like I would love to put it higher
Mm,
because of the like whole introduction.
yeah.
It's such a good feel good book to just get into.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, it's just like compared to the third one in terms of like the writing style and like the depth. I feel like the third one, the Azkaban has Philosophers beat by a
Yeah.
bit.
I think so. The,
Yeah,
the second half of Azkaban is just riveting. It's like,
yeah,
wow, I'm actually in this story. This is nuts.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then fifth place would be then Azkaban, which
Mm-hmm.
I would love to put higher, but I have like Snape ruins that book for me every time. Every time. I think it's a book where he's the nastiest.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just hard for me to. I mean, I understand him, obviously. I
Yeah.
mean, to an extent,
Yeah.
I understand that he feels frustrated, but I just cannot get over the nastiness of him, and also like I, I'm more on the hate side than love side of Snape
Yeah. Yeah.
when it comes to that discussion. Just because I cannot like justify
Yeah.
bullying children.
Yep. Bullying, yeah,
Yeah,
children, actual children.
yeah,
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 that one's, and he's actually pretty nasty to Dumbledore in that book too. Like he has a few
yeah,
moments where he's like I told you about this person. Did you look into that?
yeah,
And Dumbledore's like,
yeah,
relax, chill.
yeah, yeah,
It's a great book though.
yeah. And then the fourth place would be Goblet,
Okay.
which I don't have any like big negative things. It's a nice year. You have like a lot of adventures with the Triwizard or Quad Wizard
Mm-hmm.
tournament. Um, or and like it's quite light compared to what comes after.
Mm.
And the reveal of Voldemort coming back, that was insane.
Yeah,
Like
that
I
was so
remember
good.
being like just so floored when that happened. Like I would
Yeah.
have expected him coming back or being a bigger theme like in fifth, sixth, or seventh book. But
Yep.
yeah, it's and I mean the one other podcast that I listen to when it comes to Harry Potter stuff is Sacred Text,
Yeah, great podcast.
and there one of the hosts always says the fourth one is his favorite just because it's like the loss of innocence happens in this book,
Mm-hmm.
and from now on it's just um very very dark, or
Yeah.
it gets darker and darker. Yeah,
Yeah. A lot of people say that the third book is the loss of innocence, but I actually kind of disagree. And I think the fourth one. I think the third one is on the way to the loss of innocence, but I think the fourth one they deal with that a little bit more. Like Harry is
yeah,
kind of
I can
thrust into different
see
roles.
why the third one may be the loss of innocence, but I don't think it's that much lost yet, just because
Hmm.
yeah, I think I mean the biggest theme there is the betrayal of his parents
Mm-hmm.
and Wormtail, right? um and the Dementors obviously as well. But to me, the fourth book, when he sees Cedric get kill the
Oh my
Spare,
gosh. Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
yeah, that's just
Oop,
yeah.
hold up. Someone just joined.
No worries.
I don't know. I don't know who this is. Hold on one second. Oh, there we go.
Or-
Jumped out.
yeah.
I gotta make like I gotta figure out ways to just make this room private for like whenever
Hmm.
we're doing this.
Can't you do like a private call
I think so. Maybe
between
I'll just start
users?
doing that from
Yeah,
now on. I don't know why I set
maybe
this
it's
other room
easier.
up. Yeah, private call would be easier.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so after Goblet, again, these three are just
yeah,
super hard, and I will give reasons why these three are kind of my favorites in the next question.
yep,
But I would say for now, today, I feel like Phoenix is third place, Half Blood Prince is second,
okay,
and Deathly Hallows is first today.
nice. All right, I love that. Great order. Order of the Phoenix doesn't really get that much love, but I'm glad that it's so high on
Mm.
your list.
No, it's very very close.
Yeah,
Third, I guess.
I think it's a
Yeah,
masterpiece of writing. I think it is an exceptionally written
yeah,
book.
yeah. And usually I put Half Blood Prince before Deathly Hallows, but today I feel like Deathly Hallows has it beat.
Nice. All
Yeah,
right, I like it. Good.
yeah.
Now, can you give just like your favorite moments in each book?
Oh, uh,
I mean
I
that.
will give like from those three because I have
Yeah, yeah,
written a lot of moments from those three.
yeah,
So Half Blood Prince, I would say Phoenix Lament and Dumbledore's Funeral. I love those chapters.
yeah.
The cave, all the magic that happens in the cave,
So good.
it's just fascinating.
It is
Like
so good.
it's just a whole different world that we never really get to see besides that moment and maybe
Yeah.
the duel between Voldemort and Dumbledore. Um,
The
and
like the intensity of that chapter is there's a few chapters that I really
yeah,
distinctly remember my first time reading.
yeah,
And when Voldemort came back in the fourth book, I remember being like, this is already happening. What the heck is
Yeah,
going on? Like I didn't expect this for
yeah.
another 2 books. And then the cave was the chapter that I remember the most, being so riveted by that chapter.
It's just, on the one hand, it's super cool
Mm-hmm.
seeing Dumbledore at work, but then it's just so heavy, so hard to read, I guess,
I know.
with Dumbledore being so vulnerable and like just being in absolute despair.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, and of course, the backstory of Voldemort is also super cool.
Yeah. So
I
interesting.
think, yeah, but there, I feel like the bigger moment for me is the conversation between Harry and Dumbledore when Dumbledore tells him that it doesn't really matter about the prophecy. It
Yeah.
is your desire to want to go after Voldemort that matters, and the prophecy is just a byproduct of all of that. And yeah, the nice quote of like being dragged into the arena or
Yeah. With your head
um,
held high. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yep.
And what I also really enjoy about the sixth book is it's just the last quiet and relaxed year, kind of
Yeah. You're at
like just having the
Hogwarts.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
the school year,
Yeah.
which yeah, it's in the previous year, like in fifth book, it's just not really there. It's not really quiet. It's super intense,
Yeah.
and in the seventh, of course, you don't really go back to Hogwarts for studying.
I know. I would
Yeah,
still love to go back to Hogwarts. That's one thing. And I mean, this probably be a very boring book, but I would love to know what Hermione's 7th year was when she went back after
yeah,
the books. Like that'd be a fascinating little, like at least
yeah.
maybe like a short story or something like that. You know, I would
And
love
there's
that.
so many stories to explore
I know.
in
Yeah.
the yeah.
How about that
Um,
actually? That question actually too. We can revisit this one in a second. But what are some of the side
yeah.
stories that you want to see the most?
So actually, one of the things I wrote down is like the question, like if you could have the books from a different perspective.
Yep. Great question.
Um, I the first one would be obviously Dumbledore.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
seen so much,
Yep.
like all of his inner thoughts would be amazing to
Yeah.
read. Second one for me would be Hermione,
Yeah.
um,
Clearly. Yeah.
just because like I think she has a lot of like inner monologue that we don't get to hear,
Yeah.
and it will be fascinating to experience that. And the third one is a surprising one. I just stumbled across this idea, but I would love to read about Percy because
Dang. Okay.
I
That
just
would
want
be
to
interesting.
like read or understand what he's going through during the whole fourth, fifth book, and then six and seven, obviously, and also after the seventh, after Fred,
Yeah.
how he handles that, and like all of those things would be fascinating to read.
I
Yeah,
think a lot of times I think a lot about Percy because I go back and forth with him. He's one of my least favorite characters in the whole series. Um,
yeah,
and when we were first going through some like talk, I think I threw that out in the Reddit somewhere, and someone kind of was like, there's a few things of why I don't think he's the worst character, and then we were talking about it for a little bit, and I was kind of like, okay, maybe I'm going too hard on him. But a book from his perspective would be so fascinating. I think
yeah,
all the time about what his life is going to be after the Battle of Hogwarts.
yeah,
Like, I'm sure he carries an immense amount of guilt around with him. Like, I would
yeah,
love, I mean, the actors are like the actors, so they don't know like everything about the characters, but I would love to
yeah,
ask that actor that question.
mhm,
What he
yeah.
thinks the weight of Percy would feel after the Battle of Hogwarts, after everything is said and done.
I think I'm just making this connection now and talking about it. Like, I feel like he would be on a very similar trajectory to Dumbledore. Like
Oh man, yes, seriously.
having that remorse for the rest of your life and just
Yep.
trying to kind of make up for it, um, and kind of cope with all of that.
Yeah.
I think he would be very much leaning on doing the right thing and being a very big voice in that. I think it would be really,
Would
yeah,
be so
impactful.
fascinating. Honestly, now
Yeah.
that we're saying that Percy's slowly becoming one of my favorite characters, I think even
Yeah.
like yeah, like what he would ascend to become, because he still has his ambition, but he
Yeah.
like has reordered the priorities in his life in a good way, and
Yeah.
what he would actually do and accomplish now would be so
Mm.
fascinating. Like I think he would have the same aversion to power that Dumbledore would have. That's such a
Yeah.
great connection. That's so fascinating.
Yeah. Oh man, now I want to read that.
I know, seriously. That's a great one.
Yeah.
What other series do you want to see? Like, what other offshoots would you like to see?
I mean, just the I mean, we got to start experience that a bit, but I never really got warmed up to them. But the Fantastic Beasts movies,
Mm-hmm.
just because of the Dumbledore Grindelwald
Yeah.
and the whole politics that was ongoing back then. Because I mean, Grindelwald is fascinating to. He was much more on a global scale, right,
Mm-hmm.
compared to Voldemort, which was more like national.
Yep.
And like just experiencing those things, and also I don't know, I just there are a lot of like rebellions in the wizarding world
Yeah.
in the history,
Yeah.
and like getting to know about those would be fascinating.
Yeah. I feel like every time they're in History Magic, they're learning of a different Goblin
Yeah.
rebellion that went on, and I would love to know all the history
Mm.
of all that kind of stuff. Like, what actually is going on?
Yeah, like the Emmerich the Eager was known for his rebellion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, I know. I know. There's so
Yeah.
many of those side notes. Like, I think
Mm.
History of Magic, that's why if I could teach any class, it'd be History of Magic. Because I just want to
Yeah.
learn all the history of magic myself. I just want to learn like all the little details and backgrounds of everything. Oh,
Yeah, actually, if you could, like, if you were going to Hogwarts and you could become
mm-hmm.
prolific only in one subject, which subject would you choose?
That's a great question. If I could become prolific in only one subject, um,
Like, just being at the frontier, cutting edge, you can develop like whatever you want, like either history, spells, potions.
dang, that's a fantastic question because each one has such value to it. I don't think I'd
Yeah.
want to do Transfiguration. I think that's cool, but I think,
It's Transfiguration for me is very similar to Gryffindor. Like it's
hmm,
been like talked up so much in the
yeah,
books,
yeah,
which
yeah,
you feel like you should really like it or it's amazing.
yeah.
But like there are other options that are more treated like as soft options that I think would be actually cooler.
Yeah, seriously, I'm with you.
Mm. Yeah.
I think it'd be pretty cool to do potions, but I think that's all maybe only because Half Blood Prince. I was so intrigued by the potion work in Half Blood Prince. But
Mm.
I'm not I was never very good at chemistry when I was in high school, so I'm like, I don't know if I would do that. I mean,
Yeah.
Defense Against the Dark
Yeah.
Arts is an easy one, but I think I would probably legitimately I think I would do I love Bathilda Backshot. Even though
Mm.
Rita Skeeter's terrible, I think she's a decent writer. I would love to
Yeah.
do History of Magic. I think that I would love
Yeah.
to become like the next historian in the in
Yeah.
the wizarding world. What about you? That's a great question.
Yeah. When it comes to just like daily use, I would for sure pick charms, but
Ooh, yeah.
when it comes to like because also like I feel like sometimes when she writes about like for example the chess pieces in the first book
Mm-hmm.
when you go down to the different steps or the rooms, right? It's said that the chess pieces are a piece of transfiguration, which for me it's more like charms, feels like more
Yeah,
like charms,
that does feel more
which
like
is weird.
charms. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like when Dumbledore's fighting Voldemort, for example, like most of the
Mm,
things he does feels like more charm than transfiguration.
yeah.
Um, but when it comes to like just I don't know which career path I would need to choose, but I would love to work in the Department of Mysteries and like just
Oh,
be at the
yeah.
research. And because I mean that's kind of what I also do in real life, I guess,
Yeah.
being a researcher. But like just like trying to develop like magic and on
That
the
would be
one hand
so
it can
cool.
be quite interesting to learn about it, but also it can be useful. Like I mean, the Wolfsbane potion was one of the recent inventions, right? And it's helping
Yep.
so many people, hopefully. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Becoming an unspeakable and actually like experiencing
Mm.
each room in the Department of Mysteries would be so
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Dang, that's a great question. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna add that to my list of
Yeah.
questions for the for everyone else that comes on.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite character?
Yes. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
Dumbledore with my name.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, Wulfric.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like he is just um on the one hand, obviously he's very brilliant,
Mm-hmm.
and but that's only one part of like the intriguing thing. It's also like how much he had to shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
like all the responsibility of like leading the biggest anti-Voldemort movement, right? And doing that despite all of the tragedies in his life
Yeah.
and like with all that remorse and heaviness that he's carrying and like actually that I recently stumbled across an interview between J.K. Rowling and Stephen Fry
Hmm.
that is on YouTube just before the seventh book was coming out, I think it was. or the sixth. I don't remember. I think it was the sixth. And Stephen Fry like quoted. I don't remember who exactly he quoted, but he said that somebody said that wisdom is the ability to cope, and
Yeah.
I feel like that encapsulates Dumbledore perfectly.
Yep.
He's was just like he had to experience so much, and like his motif or like all the character um, motivations that he has like comes out of that. I feel like
That's so good.
the yeah tragedies in his life and how he copes with that, and like yeah, and one of the I don't know if that's just a movie thing or people actually also read it that way in the books. Some people like really hate Dumbledore just because like
Mm-hmm.
Harry obviously got manipulated by him,
Yep.
and feels like he was more like just user or anything, right? And one of the lines that happens in the Prince's Tale is, "Don't tell me now you've started to care for the boy." When Snape is outraged, right?
Yeah.
And in the movie, especially, you can hear the distaste when Dumbledore says that.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a misconception like that Dumbledore never really cared about Harry. I think it's more that he just feels so like disgusted kind of
Yep.
that Snape, who has always mistreated Harry, always like been such a dick to him, or
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't
You're
curse.
good. No. No. These are
um
these are unfiltered, so you're good.
yeah, okay, good. That now he like acts like this compared to Dumbledore, who really cares for Harry
Mm-hmm.
and has to go with his plan that he could see end in Harry dying.
Yeah.
Like the outrage you would feel if you hear like Snape like pretending to care for Harry
All
now.
of a sudden, yeah.
I think yeah, that's the motivation behind that line, and I think that gives a bit of a different light to him.
Yeah, discussing like I feel like the last few conversations that they have in those chapters, every line could be an entire podcast. They're
Yeah.
all so fascinating because it's the summary of each one of the characters and why they
Mm,
either show disgust or happiness or like whatever it
yeah.
is, whatever emotion it is for each line. It's just
Yeah.
so fascinating because there is a bit of wiggle room for how you interpret some of that kind of stuff as well. Because it's not
Mm,
like they're saying all these lines with like with the emotions expressed where Joe writes the
mm,
emotions. So it's
yeah.
fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a really interesting character too. He's less divisive than Snape, I think, but like I think what you said was really good because that's probably one of the reasons why I love him as a character as well is for his wisdom and
Yeah.
he's different from Snape in that he's gone through those things and he's endured them well. Like
Mhm.
he's gone through those things, gained knowledge, but he's gone through a lot. And Snape has gone through a lot as well. But I feel like
Mm,
he not necessarily hasn't learned from those, but he has to be so secretive about them that I almost feel like he can't develop his wisdom. Whereas
mm,
Dumbledore, like, because he's obviously a lot older and lived a lot longer, but he uses those experiences and he's like such a like a know-it-all in the best possible way in the books. Like you see what he's doing, how he interacts in conversations, um, and you.
yeah, I feel like yeah, sorry.
No, you're good.
I feel like the difference between Dumbledore and Snape is like Dumbledore has got to process through his different like let's say tragedies or
Yeah.
yeah, let's say tragedies, while Snape never really got to process through those.
Yep.
Like he still has to deal with Harry and like all of what that means,
Mm-hmm.
and he never really got to really move on from Lily, and
Hmm.
therefore he never got to get to a place where Dumbledore is in his life, right?
Hmm. That's
Mm.
fascinating. I mean, I think that he can, but there. Do you think that
Yeah.
Snape can see Thestrals?
Um, it's hard for me, like just based on like Lily's death,
Yeah.
I would say yes, even though he didn't see them die.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if he ever saw anybody else. Oh no, he saw Charity Burbage, right?
Yeah. 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 That's true. Yeah.
or maybe he even did it.
But it's interesting because I always think like you have to have the processing through death as well. So like the
Yeah,
idea, I mean, in the movies, he walks through the house and he doesn't necessarily see Lily die, but like for all intents and purposes,
yeah,
he kind of like sees Lily die like in her arms or
yeah,
in his arms, everything like that. So
yeah,
how if Snape's actually able to process through those things, it's a fascinating one. If because I don't know if he's really processed through Lily's death. He's had to put on this tough exterior outside of it.
yeah. Yeah, he's been like just had to soldier on while
Yeah,
never really processing through. I mean, I don't know, also know like how fast you could, or even if you could ever process that. Like,
yeah,
especially because it's his fault
yeah,
that Voldemort went after them,
yep,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's so fascinating.
Mm.
We talked about some of our your favorite moments, but do you have any others? Any other of your favorite
Oh yeah.
moments? Let's go on a
Um,
list.
in order of Phoenix, let's say Dumbledore and Voldemort fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the whole politics of that book, I actually enjoy. I
Yeah,
know people
same.
hate like sometimes like, but I enjoyed like
I
the
love it.
intrigue, trying to like go through that, all of that. And fifth one is quite interesting. It has a lot of highs, like very high highs,
Mm-hmm.
and also very low lows. I mean, one of the highs obviously is like when Fred and George get to leave.
Yep, it's the best.
That's one of the,
Feels
yeah,
so good.
it's so good. Yeah.
And one reason I love that book too is the exact reason you say. And Edgar Allan Poe has this famous quote where he said, like, the darker that he makes his stories, the better the light can shine through him. So that's
Yeah.
why that Fred and George moment for me is like a still, and it's like I will stand up and like cheer whenever I get to that section because I get so excited.
Yeah.
But I think it's
Yeah.
for that reason because you hate Umbridge so much, and you're dragged through this book, and there's
Yeah.
so many dark moments in that book that it's like agonizing. Or when you do
Yeah.
get those good moments, they are
Yeah.
celebratory.
Yeah. She just like bit by bit, like just chipped away at Harry.
Yeah.
Like first Umbridge, then I mean the whole ministry and like the wizarding world
Yep.
not believing him, and Sirius at the end. I mean, it's just one after another.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's not as bad as in the seventh, when he like just is basically just with Ron and Hermione, or maybe just Hermione, and then also loses kind of his father figure, which I mean you could argue is Dumbledore a father figure for him or not.
Mm-hmm.
But like just like learning about all of that and being in absolute despair, and seeing what Dumbledore like wanted from him despite not being honest with him, and like all of
Yeah.
that. It's just so heavy.
Yep.
And I think, yeah, that I'm a weirdo, but I really enjoy those moments.
Yeah. Same. My favorite. I think one of my favorite moments in the entire series as well is when he destroys the office and they have this whole like deep
Yeah,
discussion on that.
yeah,
It is. It's so
yeah,
good. It's such good writing.
yeah, yeah. And last thing I love from Phoenix is also just the exams. I don't know why. I mean, it's
You're
just
the
not fun to
researcher,
see
so yeah.
them. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, for Deathly Hollows, I mean, all of them could be just. But I mean, yeah, I mentioned already, like the writing in that book is like just phenomenal. Like
Mm-hmm.
the thoughts when, or also the discussion with Hermione when in the Life and Lies of Albus Dumbledore,
Yeah.
the whole despair part, and also like Dobby's death and like the digging,
Mm-hmm.
where you hear his inner thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and also for the forest again, like it's just the inner thoughts of somebody marching to their own death. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, you cannot beat that.
Yep.
And also the whole King's Cross section, which, yeah, as a kid, I mean, that kind of helped. Like, I was never really scared of death, but I mean, it's a comforting thought that you could go to that. I mean, it doesn't
Yes.
have to be bad, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that is quite a powerful scene as well when you think about that.
Yep.
And the whole survival aspect of seventh book, I also enjoy, because I mean, it's kind of like a, you're on the run and you need to hide and survive, and it's quite
Yeah.
fascinating.
It's like an
Yeah,
escape book, 100%.
yeah,
It's so entertaining. Um,
yeah,
that's why even some of the things that people hate in the seventh book, when I'm
Oh, I
rereading it
enjoyed
right
the
now,
tent.
I
Yeah,
love every moment of it. Like I
yeah,
can't wait till we get to the 10 scenes. Part of me because I
yeah,
love backpacking, so I love that kind of stuff. But like
yeah,
anything in that whole sequence to me is so fascinating because again, even what you were saying before, the character studies on each person in those moments when they're just having what seems to be like throwaway dialogue, but the character development through them is
yeah.
so
It's
perfect. It's like,
I cannot understand people saying those are filler.
yeah,
Like
I know.
it's so huge in my
Yep.
book.
Yep. Completely agree.
Yeah, yeah. I just remembered I forgot to mention that Hermione is my very second favorite
Oh,
character.
okay. Nice. That's
Yeah,
actually like it's not like maybe that the craziest surprise when Hermione is like a favorite
yeah,
character, but I feel like I don't hear that often to be completely honest.
yeah.
I hear a
No, I
lot of
love
like
her. Yeah,
side
yeah,
characters. Why what's the reason
yeah.
you love her? Good researcher, good mind,
Yeah,
Ravenclaw.
she's brilliant, brilliant, of course, but
Yeah.
just so empathetic, the voice of reason, and um, also very hardworking. I
Yeah.
think that goes a bit under. Like, she just seems to be able to cope with everything, but I think that, like she's actually putting a lot of work,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just like a kind of a inspiration, I would say.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I love the idea too that she probably could have been sorted in Ravenclaw, but I think she made the
yeah,
decision to go to Gryffindor. I kind of like that.
yeah,
Even though
yeah,
Ravenclaw would have been a cool house for her, but you know.
yeah. They could have
um
used her,
I know,
as a role
seriously.
model.
Yeah, agreed for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Then again, I'm like some of the characters that are in Gryffindor, I'm like I don't know if they should be in Gryffindor. I'm like Lavender, I feel
yeah.
like I don't know if she should be in Gryffindor.
Percy should have been in Slytherin.
Ooh, yeah, completely agree.
Yeah,
Completely agree. I think someone
yeah,
was talking about this. I don't know if it was you. Someone was I think we were having a this Discord discussion on it where we think that he had the option, but like the Sorting Hat
mm,
gave him the choice. And his choice was because his family, because at that point in the books, he truly did value his family probably more than his ambition
yeah,
because he didn't really know what he was processing. He probably chose
yeah,
Gryffindor because it's a family tradition.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
later on, I think he's really a Slytherin. I think
yeah,
he's his
yeah,
ambition. And then
yeah,
toward the end of the books, I think he becomes a Gryffindor again, a true
yeah,
Gryffindor. His
yeah,
bravery and like swallowing his own pride is really fascinating
yeah.
because that's
Which
what
is
was
hard.
keeping him. Yeah, it was keeping him from going back to his family. Like
Yeah,
the whole sixth book, you're agonizing. You're like, why isn't he at the wedding? Like, why doesn't he just suck it
yeah,
up and say sorry to his family and then go back?
yeah,
And that's a hard thing to do. And I love that.
yeah.
Like again, I love the relatability for certain things that she writes. Like that
Hmm.
section, it's great writing, but it's also like beckoning other people that are in your life that like you're harboring grudges against, or you're like not swallowing your pride to like
Yeah,
fix your relationships with these other people. It's like a
yeah,
good call for you to be like, you know
yeah,
what, just suck it up and life's too short. You could
yeah,
to be really depressing. You could get back into
yeah,
your family's life and your brother could die the very same hour. So like it's
yeah,
life's too short, you know?
yeah,
I think
yeah.
her
Definitely.
writing is just perfect.
Yeah. There's just like so many deep conversations or things you can learn from the
I know.
book
Yeah.
if you try to treat it as sacred. And I mean, obviously, it's not perfect,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I mean, the fun of it is to just try to make the best of it.
Yeah. Again, that's why
Yeah.
even the podcast you mentioned, Harry Potter and their sacred text, I love how they treat the
Yeah.
text. It's just
Yeah.
the idea that everything's sacred and everything has meaning and
Yeah.
everything has purpose and there's like
Yeah.
points to everything that she wrote.
Yeah.
I think it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
All right, do you have any super hot takes?
I struggle a bit with that one, but I don't know. Like it just feels weird to say that, but I sometimes do feel pity for Pettigrew, Wormtail.
Interesting. Okay, I like that one.
Um, Not necessarily the way he died, but like the way he was treated as a kid.
Yeah.
Like he was like kind of there to be to worship James
Yeah.
and maybe Sirius
Wow, that's a
about
great
that.
point.
And he was mostly usually the butt of the joke. Like he was in an environment where his it wasn't like the self-worth and self-esteem was not really fostered,
Yeah.
but rather like it was like a belittlement, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of understand why you would then try to be around like more powerful people just to get sometimes some recognition, because I think he was lacking that, and like kind of reminds me a bit of Neville,
Yeah, seriously, yeah.
when like before he came to Hogwarts, like how his family treated him. Like it was a very conditional love. It felt like he needed to be a wizard, otherwise
Mm.
he would, if he would have been a squib, I think they would have like really
Yep.
distance themselves
Yeah.
and be, yeah, it just feels weird and like really really um wrong, yeah, to be treated like that. And I do feel pity for Pettigrew just because of that. But I mean, it's just unforgivable what he did to his
Yeah.
friends, and in the end,
I
yeah.
think yeah, it's unforgivable what he does to his friends, but at the same point, one of the reasons why she writes such compelling characters is because you can have a hot take like that, and it's sometimes it's not even that crazy hot. Like she writes this character so well that you don't just automatically
Mm.
hate them for everything that they do. Yeah, that you look back
Yeah,
into their life and you're like, you know what? There are certain moments that you have pity in his life. Like he made the wrong
yeah,
decisions for certain things, but that's why I love her character writing because
yeah. It's just she relishes in
yeah,
gray areas. Like
yeah,
it's amazing.
which is like some of the best
Yeah,
characters that you can do because
yeah,
every person in real life relishes in the or they live in the gray areas. Like no
mm,
one's perfectly pure, no one's perfectly evil. You know, maybe
yeah,
there's like an exception here and there, but like the idea that Harry is in the end offering a chance of remorse for the most evil,
yeah,
wicked wizard who's ever existed is a testament to
mm,
what I think she does in the books, which is give you depth behind every character, give you some, maybe
mm,
not like a full backstory, but some kind of backstory where you understand why they made the decisions that they made and where they came to that point, and like why they are who they
yeah.
are. You know?
And it's fascinating, like the instinct of both Ron and Harry when he's dying is to try to stop that.
Yeah,
Like they both act instinctively, like
yeah,
just to stop that,
that's so
and not
good.
like thinking about their own skin, right?
That's
It's
so good.
fascinating.
I can't wait
Yeah,
till when Danny gets to that point, what he's going to say too. Because he's been waiting for that
yeah,
moment to happen. And then,
yeah,
exactly with what you're saying, when Ron and Harry instinctively try to stop it, I'm like, what is Danny going to
mm,
say to that? I think he's going to love that
yeah,
moment. I think he's been waiting
yeah,
for that moment for months, and he's finally going to
yeah.
get it.
Oh, so many good moments got to
I
come.
know.
I love it.
Seriously. I can't
I
wait.
love it. Yeah.
And then the final question, unless you have any others that you want to talk about, is can you just tell me what this series has meant to you?
Yeah, I think it's hard to describe.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down like I think three aspects. The first one being it's a really a place of familiarity
Mm.
and comfort. Uh, because on the one hand, you know what an amazing journey you will start,
Yep.
and I think that there the length, the whole endeavor that you're undertaking, like by starting this journey, is a feature.
Yep.
Like there's just something about like going through all of that, like knowing
Yeah.
about all the things you will encounter, and that part is for sure huge. And of course, also being with the characters that you love
Yeah.
and got to know, and also those you hate. But also, it has been for me kind of a place of inspiration,
Mm.
both in terms of like what I said with Dumbledore and Hermione's brilliance, and the resilience that Harry endures.
Mm.
Like he goes through so much, and like on the one hand, I mean, he stays true to himself, but also like just from the first book, it's fascinating how he can stay curious in an environment where he gets constantly by the Dursleys told that
Yeah.
he's not allowed to ask questions.
Yep.
And I think curiosity is one of the like human traits that is the most underrated. Like
Yep. I
it's
love
just
curiosity. Yeah.
if you lose your curiosity, then I feel you lose kind of a part of humanity.
Yeah.
And it's also a place of wonder for me. Just like trying to figure out like how that magic works, or how those mechanisms work, but also like the motivations of characters, and like it's just like a place where you can just try to live through those moments or characters and like
Mm.
wonder like, yeah, yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I loved what you said was your book club. And I think like I've started a bunch of book clubs. That's how I knew Danny and Jen beforehand, but that's how I met Kristen because I started this book club and they all came to it. Because one of the things that I wanted to do was just discuss books that I loved, like that I truly loved.
Hmm.
And I would love to do some kind of like book club format with this where people who have
Yeah,
read Harry Potter before, like we just jump on like a Discord call and for for like probably take hours to discuss a single chapter, but just to sit back
yeah,
and discuss like the themes that are going through this,
yeah,
like how this has helped people go through different parts of their life because every single chapter helps a person in different ways. because the
Yeah,
depth to her writing is just immaculate.
yeah.
It's perfect.
Especially, I was like surprised, like the way, again, coming back to that sacred
Mm-hmm.
text podcast, they usually have just one word, right?
Yeah.
That's the theme of the reading of that chapter, and they've done this now. I think it's the second season or second
Yeah.
time read through, and using like different themes for those chapters that they've read before, and like just like all the different things that pop out if you try to read it through a lens of, I don't know, like despair or like vulnerability or like
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to choose, and then just having a completely different mindset when you go into those chapters and like trying to discuss those. That's just
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is so it's such a good take. And yeah, again, I feel like they can go through 20, 30, 40 seasons of that
yeah,
podcast and they can come up with different themes because there's so many different themes
yeah,
packed into every chapter. And filtering
yeah,
a chapter through like those themes, like that's why doing a book club on this, like maybe
yeah.
that's another thing we'll start incorporating. We'll do our own community read through of this, like all the
Oh, that would be
members.
amazing.
I think that would be so fun.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll start
yeah,
implementing that because I think Cecilia or someone mentioned it on our Discord of just going through the books,
yeah,
like having that be the framework behind how we discuss certain things. So I
yeah.
think
That would be cool.
that'd be kind of
Yeah,
sweet just to sit back and like have all of us discuss it because this is
yeah,
even one of the reasons why I even started this because I'm like working with people who have never read it for the first time, and it's
yeah,
so much fun because I'm vicariously living
yeah,
through them. But I'm finding the void for me is not gushing enough about certain things and like having to
yeah,
hold my tongue and not be able to talk about
yeah,
deeper about some of these theories that I want to talk about.
yeah,
So that'd be a
yeah.
pretty fun
I
thing
think
to
that would
do.
be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We
Maybe
should
we'll
do
start it. Maybe we'll
that.
get it going pretty soon. That'd be pretty
Yeah,
fun. Maybe that'd be
yeah,
like the next season of Harry Potter and the First Time Readers. Harry
yeah.
Potter and the
That would be
experienced
cool.
readers.
Yeah, the emptiest time readers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much for joining. This is great.
that was so fun.
Good.
Yeah,
Good. I'm glad.
thanks for having me.
Yeah. And we'll keep doing these. This is just a start of some of the extra stuff that we're gonna do for some discussions and for some meetups and stuff like that. But thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. This was a good time.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.